My talk addresses the role stigma plays in our willingness to get the help that we need when struggling with mental health issues.
A series of unfortunate events related to my mental health happened last year. In fact, it was the hardest year of my life, but like any comedian, once I was properly medicated, I thought this would make a really great show. And so here we are. This show is about mental health. This show has some serious parts that touch on some sensitive topics. However, during those parts, I will deflect our emotions with humor. Because if it works in therapy, it can work on stage. I'm just kidding. It doesn't work in therapy. They all know that trick. Oh yeah, they don't want you being funny. They also don't want you to drink to numb your feelings, yell at your kids, or have reckless sex. Therapy is basically a checklist of things you can't do anymore. Susan, what's something you can do instead of online shopping when relationship issues come up? They say it's a judgment-free zone, but I don't believe that for a second.
Suffering from mental health issues can be lonely. This talk sends the strong message that it's okay not to be okay, and that you're not alone.
Anxiety and self-checkout is not a winning combination. The self-doubt and the paranoia is palpable. Like when I do self-checkout, it's like I have never used a touch screen or a debit card ever before in my life. Like I spend all day on my iPhone, and then when I'm doing self-checkout, all of a sudden I turn into a boomer, and I'm squinting and nervously pressing shit with one finger. Barcode, 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 barcode. Where the hell's the barcode? How can this thing not have a goddamn barcode? Oh, there it is. Boom. Please see attendant. Oh God, I'm going down. And because I assume a large group of people have gathered, formed an audience to watch me do self-checkout, I don't want to spend the time searching the system for produce. The other day, I stole a bunch of limes to speed things up. I'm not a bad person, I'm just convinced someone's timing me. But can we all agree that produce should be free if you work at the grocery store? I don't want to work at all these places, but I do. I guess if this comedy thing doesn't work out, I suppose I can add it to my resume. Cashier at Walmart, Sobeys, Canadian Tire, Shoppers Drug Mart, Michaels. Yeah, Michaels. Michaels has self-checkout because so many people are buying glitter pens and pipe cleaners. Apparently they're overrun and need the public to pitch in and help. And by the way, I'm not getting paid to work at these places. So on my resume, I will also make it quite clear that I've been very busy with my volunteer work.
Through sharing my journey, I normalize experiences such as depression and anxiety and offer hope. The hard times in our lives are not forever.
I constantly was in my head, and I felt on edge most of the time. I thought everybody worried about everything all the time. But turns out, for the past 15 years, I've had generalized anxiety. One of my favorite things to do is wake up in the middle of the night and think about things outside of my control for about 3 hours. Yeah. When I see my therapist wearing a new piece of jewelry, I'm like, oh, look at my overthinking got for you. So pretty. You're welcome. Don't bother walking a mile in my shoes, that's boring. Spend 30 seconds in my head, that'll freak you right out. Yeah, some days I'm very tempted to reply to someone and say, your email is not finding me well. Whenever I think to myself, what could possibly go wrong? My anxiety says, I'm so glad you asked. Yeah, my favorite yoga pose is downward spiral.
There's lots of laughs in this talk as well. When we see the humor in our struggles, that helps us to move through them and get to the other side.
People talk about being nonchalant, which made me realize that I am chalant. Very chalant. Extra chalant. Like I've never been chill, not once in my life. Something I've noticed is that paradoxically, mental health is still deeply stigmatized, and yet it is also very trendy now. Yeah. Nobody worries anymore. They have anxiety. Nobody has the blues. They're depressed. We used to be lonely. Now we're codependent. We don't get pissed off. We put up boundaries. It's all a little bit happening right now. But this is rather generational, right? This is rather generational because the baby boomers are like the exact opposite, right? The boomers are the great avoiders, the great minimizers. As they sit there sipping on their scotch, bouncing their leg incessantly, they will assure you that everything is fine. Oh, for God's sakes, I'm not paying someone to talk about my feelings. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, right, we've got Gen Z. They're very self-aware. They ask for therapists for Christmas. Speaking of which, because, therapy is rather cool now, right? It's gone a bit mainstream, right? We can agree with that. Therapy's kind of cool now. But because of that, we're pathologizing every behavior, right? Like you deep clean your bathroom, you've got OCD. You're naturally nervous about starting a new job, imposter syndrome, right? Mood swings, bipolar. Can't focus, ADHD. Telling someone you're triggered is how you win an argument in 2024. I got very triggered by what you just said. You're gonna have to go.
This talk gives people permission to laugh at their struggles. Seeing what's funny about something is a healthy perspective. It makes a situation appear much more manageable.
A few years ago, my therapist diagnosed me with complex trauma, also known as big T trauma. Listen, I'm not trying to brag. For those of you out there with regular trauma, I see you.